few days ago, I received an email from a viewer of my YouTube channel who doesn't make fighter kites but likes to fly them and was interested in learning how to make them. And he asked me what would be the easiest kite to make for someone who's not a kite maker. So I got to thinking about it and decided I would create a plan that would be what I think easier to make than those that are available online currently. Now this kite I call REDDOG. I call it REDDOG because I made the first one out of red polypropylene gift wrap. It's just a plastic gift wrap film I bought at papermart.com. And they have all kinds, all patterns. But this kite flies really well, quick, easy to make, and although I didn't decorate it or anything, you certainly could, depending on what material you wanted to use and how you wanted to do it. So I made a template for this kite, and I make a template for every kite I make. You don't have to. Here are the dimensions, and I'll put the dimensions and all of the materials that you need, along with the tools you need in order to make the kite, and I'll put that in the description below so you'll have reference to it if you want to make one of these. Now it's going to use a carbon fiber bow, and if you're new to fighter kiting, the bow is the piece that goes from one wingtip to the other and is curved. And for the spine, which is the stick that goes between the nose and the tail of the kite, I'm going to use a flat piece of carbon fiber, or I might use a piece of bamboo. Either one works. You could actually use a carbon fiber rod also. Just your choice. The easiest one to use would be bamboo. If you have bamboo available, maybe you have a paper bamboo kite from India that's been damaged, and if so, you can take the bamboo from it and use it. The thing about bamboo that's nice is that because the spine of the kite needs to have a slight bend in it in order for the kite to function properly, bamboo can be bent and it'll stay in that shape, and that's all you need to do. With a carbon fiber spine, you need to put a tension line from around the center to the nose that will allow you to adjust the amount of bend while you're flying the kite. So that's an extra step of putting in a tension line that you wouldn't have if you use bamboo. Otherwise, carbon fiber is very, very durable and weatherproof, and I think overall the best material. So this kite depends on the wind speed you're going to fly it in. If where you fly kites, the winds are under 5 miles an hour, then I would recommend using a 0.05 inch diameter carbon fiber rod. If the winds are above 6 to 8 miles an hour, maybe that range, and over, then use a 1.5 millimeter diameter bow. And if it's somewhere in between where you fly, then use a 1.3 millimeter. But the length of the bow is the same no matter what wind speed, and it's 25 inches. So whatever bow you get a piece longer than 25 so you can cut it to the right size. Now I drew around my template. That's what I use my template for. I also marked on here the location of the nose, which is here, and the tail. And then I drew my spine line, and I marked where the wingtips were on each and drew a line there. Now you'll notice on this template there are two little tabs, one on each wingtip. We're going to use those to make a little pocket to hold the bow initially before the bow is actually installed in the kite. Now the first thing that I do when I make a kite is this is the leading edge of the kite, and this is the trailing edge of the kite. If you're not familiar with kites, that's the name of them. So on this leading edge, the wind really abuses this quite a bit, and it also abuses the trailing edge, but the leading edge I like to reinforce with tape. It's easy to do, and it makes a huge difference in the durability of the kite, and it makes it fly better also. Now, I just use this polyfilm because I like how smooth and slippery it is in the wind. It's very durable. You could use fabric like ripstop nylon or ripstop polyester or Tyvek or any lightweight material for the sail of the kite. And if you are going to decorate your kite, change the pattern from just plain like this, or if it has a pattern on it, you want the back side of the sail facing upward. That's what you're going to work on, is the back side. But if you decorate it before you lay the kite out. Decorate this whole piece and then lay the kite out and make your kite. So the first step is to reinforce this. Now I use tape for that, and I would normally use clear packing tape. The thinnest tape you can get is the best because it's the most flexible, but clear packing tape seems to bond really well to most materials. But that's the key thing. You want the tape to bond well to whatever material you're using for the sail. So that's the key thing. Test it first to make sure it will bond well and stay stuck. Once you do that, you're all set. That's the tape you use for that particular sail material. So I'm going to reinforce this, and I'm going to do it in a really simple way. I'm using this is called Tyvek. It's used for putting up house wrap, and I don't know where I got it exactly, but it's 2-inch wide like packing tape, so I'm going to pretend this is packing tape. And you see I made a parallel mark along the leading edge of the kite. And it's about 3/8 of an inch or so in on both sides. And it lines up with these little tabs over here. So I'm just going to lay the tape on that inside line, one edge of the tape. Now it doesn't have to be super perfectly aligned, but close as possible. And press it down. And then I will cut it. And I'll do the same on the other side. So there we have it. Now I'm going to cut the kite out. And when I cut the kite out, I don't use my template to cut around. I only use my template to draw the pattern and to mark the location of the wingtips and the nose and the tail. I use a ruler when I'm cutting with a knife, and the reason is when I'm cutting, I often, this is one of my favorite materials to use for a sail, is a polypropylene film, this plastic gift wrap. And when you cut it though, you've got to be very careful. You cannot cut it. I'm going to use an X-Acto knife here to do it. And it'd be good to have a new blade, or at least a sharp one. But the thing is, when you do cut it, you want to be certain that your knife does not stop once it starts cutting. If it does, let's say I'm cutting here and I stop right here, then I won't be able to see it. It's invisible, but there's very likely going to be a little nick in this material at that point. Now you may not notice it, and it might be just fine for a while, but when you're flying the kite, the wind pressure on the sail often will just use that nick, and the sail will rip right across the whole thing and ruin your kite. So to prevent that, when you're using a knife, just make sure that the cut is very, very smooth and all in one effort. You don't want to hesitate, you don't want to stop, you just want to go one full smooth cut. Now I started this cut at the corner, I guess you'd say, of this tab that I have here. I'm going to put the knife there and cut this direction. And that's the edge of the kite. Now I'm going to do this around the whole kite. Well, the sail is cut out, as you can see, and now we're going to do the next step, which is to make these little pockets to stick the bow into. Now this material you want smooth as you can get it. I sometimes will put masking tape on the sail material to help hold it down to the cutting mat, but sometimes even that doesn't get it completely smooth. Just do as good as you can and it'll work out fine. So these tabs here, I'm going to fold over onto the sail itself. And of course they won't stay there. And really I don't expect them to yet. Eventually they will. Now I'm going to put, on my cutting mat, I have some marks here that are on there, just printed on the mat itself. They're about an inch apart or close to it. Now I just stuck this down very, very lightly. I want to be able to remove it, and I don't want the stickiness to disappear when I do. So what I'm going to do is just eyeball. I'll cut it up here, maybe easier to see it for you. I'm just going to cut along here. About a 1/4 of an inch wide. This is going to be about a 1/4 of an inch wide. I could measure it and mark it and have it exact, but I'm just going to eyeball it because that's good enough for this, I think. I'll find out maybe. It isn't. So now I'm going to remove this little piece of tape with one of my favorite tools, toothpick. I'm going to stick the tape sticky side up onto the toothpick. Then I'm going to fold over the tab and lift up the corner of the kite and slide the sticky side up, slide it right along the trailing edge of the kite, best as I can here. And you can see I did pretty good. I've got a little bit of extra, but I'm not worried. I'll take care of that later. And then I'm going to fold this over and then fold the other tape on top of it and press it down along the trailing edge of the kite. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. Well, we have the bow in the little pockets sitting here. And your kite, if you're making one, should look similar to this. If you have made the bow 25 inches and followed the plan and made the kite this way. I noticed that this was beginning to wrinkle a little bit, and so I put pieces of masking tape here and here to help hold it down to the table so it's smoother. Now we're going to install this bow, and the way we're going to do it is using contact cement. Now I've used Weldwood, this kind of contact cement, for over 25 years making kites, and never once has it failed me in the fact that it released the bond that was made between the parts of the kite that I glued. So I got a really high level of confidence in it. And I'm going to put the glue around the entire circumference of the bow on each end, about 6 inches. I'm just going to roughly measure that, but that's yeah, it's about 6 inches. It should be at least 5 inches, but 6 might be better. I'm going to use 6. Now you don't have to have a lot of glue, but it needs to be on all the surfaces around the circumference of the bow on both ends. Now, while it's wet, contrary to the directions on the bottle, which says you should put wet glue on both surfaces, let the glue dry on both surfaces, and then stick them together. Well, this is wet, and I'm going to use it that way. And I think I maybe need a little more over here. Didn't quite get it far enough up on the... I want it to be the same on both sides. I probably should have measured it, but I didn't. You can see I dripped the glue there on the wax paper, and this is one of the things that I love about wax paper, is it's a real good savior for when you're gluing. So now we're going to install this bow wet glue, but that's okay. That's how we're going to do it. And we're going to install it this way. I'm going to bend it with my hands in the areas that are not glued. I'm going to slip one end into one pocket, the other end in the other pocket, and keep it above the sail like this. So this is above the sail. Now I'm just going to allow it to slowly drop down onto the sail, and I'm going to press it where it's not glued. Then I'm going to get a piece of wax paper, and I'm going to press it down where it is glued, just to make sure the bond is solid where the glue is. And now we're going to let that dry. Simple as that. And we'll add a little bit of tape to it right about here. And the bow will be installed. And we'll then install the spine, which will be just about as easy.